with over 20 years of experience in teaching and learning. And she comes with us with a wealth of experience in curriculum development, education administration, and secondary, tertiary, and sectors in public sector in particular. One of the things that we really love is that she's an advocate for creative education. And so integrating arts and education is one of the things that she values and she's committed to and that she promotes. You know, she has a number of paper presentations. We invite you to look through her bio that's on our website. And certainly I don't want to read the full bio, but certainly she comes with a wealth of experience, and we are really honored to have you, Dr. Jones. And so without any further ado, I just want to welcome, and I want to also welcome the members of my team who are there present. We see Dr. Zephyrin, we see Mr. Mohammed, we see Mr. Garcia, Mr. Duku. We certainly want to say welcome. All right.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Hill, for that beautiful introduction. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to Dr. Hill for introducing my colleagues who are working along with me and have been working as we got ready for this workshop. We want to welcome all of you, the participants this morning. I would like to ask if at times during the presentations that we will ask you to do after 2 sessions, I'll share the outline of the session with you shortly. If you would enable your videos, if possible, from time to time. So welcome everyone. I am going to share my screen now. As we get started. If you're hearing me loud and clear, could you please show a thumbs up? Indicate if you are all hearing me clearly. Okay, good. So thank you, those of you who indicated. Welcome once again to our learning outcomes session. We are focusing this morning for the next 2 hours on writing and alignment with reference to learning outcomes. Now, before we get going into this particular session today, this webinar, which is activity-based, so that you're not going to be for the next 2 hours just sitting and watching a number of slides with a lot of content and hearing me drone on and on. That's not how the workshop is structured. I'll share with you some more details in a little while concerning how the workshop is structured. But first of all, we'd like to hear from you very quickly. What made you decide to register for this particular webinar? And what are your expectations for the session? But we're not all going to shout at once. We're not all going to talk at once. I'd like you very quickly, all at once, or at the same time, to please write in the chat so that we can see, everyone can see, what are your expectations and why you decided to join this particular webinar. So let's see if we can do that as quickly as we can, and then we will move on to the rest of the presentation I have for you, which is interspersed with a number of activities. Thank you. I am going to ask one of my colleagues if we could get help just sharing some of what our colleagues are writing in the chat. So thank you,
Okay, so we have
Yes, thank you.
Stephen Henry. Good morning.
Yeah.
I decided to join this webinar because I want to begin teaching soon. Right, and we
Beautiful.
have Navin. Good morning, everyone. I'm doing this to assist in creating course outlines for some of the IT Academy courses.
Beautiful. Thank you for those comments.
I've been asked to prepare a grammar course for next semester. That's Melanie. All right, so we have the comments coming in. Sherma, hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm hoping to recommend changes to a course outline. Want to get it right. I think you're in the right place.
I
Good
think so
morning,
too.
all. I'm
Thank you.
interested in developing a new course. Nice. All right. Someone is also saying that they want to find out more about writing proper learning outcomes. I think I'm here as well for the same reason. I want to learn more. I enrolled for continuing professional development. I transferred faculties and had to write 5 new course outlines for this year. So I thought refreshing my knowledge would be helpful. And this is from Khatija Khan. Yeah. Do we have any more? Yes, good morning. In the department, we are in the process of updating course outlines, and that is Alana Sanka participating to guide FMS faculty to frame learning outcomes for their courses. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Any more, or can we move on?
That's it. You can move on.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. And thank you to you, my colleagues, who have indicated and shared with us some of your expectations and reasons for joining today's webinar. I hope your expectations will be met. Please note there is a part 2 to this webinar, so look out for the notifications concerning that. But today, we will be focusing exclusively on writing and alignment with reference to developing learning outcomes. So, having said that, upon completion of this webinar, you will be able to, 1, identify characteristics of effective learning outcomes, critique sample learning outcomes, align learning outcomes to goals, learning activities, and assessments, and create effective learning outcomes. But don't get worried, we're not putting anyone on the spot in today's session. You'll be helping each other. We will all be involved, all be engaged, and it's cooperative learning. So don't feel nervous, don't feel worried. We won't be singling anyone out. We won't be putting anyone on the spot. We want you to simply enjoy the session, engage, have some fun, and learn with each other. And hopefully after today's session, you would have connected with a colleague with whom you might not have connected previously, and the 2 of you and more of you can begin networking. That is always my hope and expectation arising out of teaching and learning sessions, events, webinars such as these. I call it a webinar workshop. It's not the typical kind of webinar. I could not contain myself from being a little different, from trying to step out of the box. But when we step out of the box, we learn and gain new insights, especially when we pause to reflect and we begin to apply new knowledge to our practice of teaching and learning. So moving on, you will be doing a lot of talking, and there will be time for fielding questions, hopefully at the end, but we will be picking up the pace a bit. Before we begin to get into the nitty-gritty meat of it, there's something that I'd like you to view, a brief video. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. that is coming straight out of the production engine of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning.
Dr. You clicked on the, you need to click on the icon there.
Right.
Is it open?
I agree with you. It's very productive.
Definitely. So yeah, we're just add that to the calendar. Now, if you could know, because you know what things that get busy and
Wait, I can't do it now.
We're not seeing any video.
Catch a TV.
We can hear the audio, but no video.
Okay, we're gonna rectify
Okay,
just 1 minute.
we're working on that, so we will get that video going. We're just getting some technical assistance here so that you can see this video. It is one that you definitely would want to see. But when you give us feedback, you'll tell us what you thought about it. And we want very honest, constructively critical feedback from you at the end of the workshop, please. Thank you. So, are we ready?
all right. So that was a good meeting, eh?
I agree with you. It was very productive.
Definitely.
Yes.
So here, we're just add that to the calendar. Now, if you could do it now, because you know how things just get busy and
Wait, I can't do it now. Sorry.
Right.
I'm rushing to catch a TTT.
me. But
Yes.
why are you watching Trinidad and Tobago Television Network during work hours? I don't
I
understand.
do not engage in activities. This TTT is something somebody was telling me about that Settle Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning have done.
Oh, you mean teaching Tuesday tips or Tuesday teaching tips?
I hear there's something live related
Right.
to it happening just now.
No. Okay, all right. Well, let me break it down. So, what it is really that, you know, teaching Tuesday tips is like little tidbits on teaching and learning, you know, all kinds of things related to teaching and learning, especially in higher education.
I like the sound of that.
And this week, it's related to learning outcomes.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
the workshop somebody told me was happening
Right. So-
in about 5 minutes.
Right, so they normally tie TTT with an upcoming live workshop. So it's sent via email, so you don't have to worry. You don't have to
So
worry.
wait now, when are you going to actually put it on TTT, Trinidad and Tobago Television?
Well, I don't know about that, Guild. That's
Well,
the next
there
time.
could be educational tidbits.
There you go.
Being televised.
Well, let me try and work on something now.
Yes.
All
I
right.
Okay, great. So I hope you enjoyed that little video. Thank you to the tech team. Let's move on. So Mr. Mohammed now is going to have us engage in a quick activity. It's TTT poll time. So please, we want everyone to try their hands at this. There's a brief poll that's going to be running now, and we ask you to participate, to run, participate in the poll and select your responses to the questions. There are only 3 questions, so it's going to finish very quickly.
Okay, so you should be seeing the poll on your screen. It's 3 questions. The first one is a learning outcome is. That's a single choice. The second one is another single choice. with true or false. And the last one is single choice, where you select one out of 4 of the options provided there. Thank you. We have one coming in. Keep them coming in. Wonderful.
I was just about to say, Javi, that there's a prize for the first 14 people to do it.
Oh.
I think it was something like a free consultation for learning outcomes, right?
You see how my colleagues are setting me up already? But that's fine. And we see the participation in the poll increasing. Excellent. Thank you, colleagues. This is excellent.
Okay, so I will stop the poll. I'll end the poll now. Dr. Jones, is that okay? We have
That's okay. Thank
13
you.
responses.
13. We don't
Yeah.
have 14 to
Well,
respond.
I will be that person. Well, yeah, I can't participate. Oh, we have 20% now. So yeah, we can wait for one more person.
Oh, okay. We can
Yeah,
wait.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed.
All right, so those of you who just joined the session, you should be seeing a poll on your screen. We want to invite you to participate before we end the poll. Giving it 20 more seconds. All right, so I'm ending the poll now. And would you like to see the results, Dr. Jones?
Yes, please.
All right. So I'll share the results. And looking at the results, we have, for the first question, a learning outcome is, we have 92% of you who indicated a statement indicating, sorry about that, a statement indicating the end result for a learner. Yeah. Just get expand for a learner following a course or learning activity. And we have one person who selected the knowledge, skills, or attitudes of the learners. And for the second question, which of the following is true? And we have 54% of you indicated 2 essential features of learning outcome, that they are manageable and time-bound. A learning outcome, and then 46% of you indicated a learning outcome should be relevant to the learner's goals and interests. So this is interesting. We have almost a right down the middle results here.
This is feisty. This is feisty.
Yeah. So I know Dr. Jones will have something to say about that.
Yes.
And for the last question, the majority of you suggested that the statement, including multiple verbs in a single learning outcome, makes it immeasurable. And 15% stated more specific, and 23% stated more expansive.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Garcia. And I like that word. It really makes things a bit feisty. So let's see what percentages, who got what correct. Are you ready? Are you ready? Now, colleagues, it is okay to unmute your mic from time to time to respond. It would really be nice if you did. So if you don't want to unmute your mic, you can simply give a thumbs up. Let me know that you are engaging. While I'm sharing, I can't see you, so I am limited. So let's see some thumbs ups. Okay, so question number 1, a learning outcome is, and the answer is, see it lighting up there, 3, a statement indicating the end result for a learner following a course or learning activity. If you selected number 3, that is correct. So what's the prize, Mr. Garcia?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, question number 2. Which of the following is true? 1, 2 essential features of learning outcomes are that they are manageable and time-bound, or is it number 2? A learning outcome should be relevant to the learner's goals and interests. And the answer is number 2. A learning outcome should be relevant to the learner's goals and interests. Moving on to the last question from our poll. Select the most appropriate word or phrase to complete the following. Including multiple verbs in a single learning outcome makes it 1, measurable, 2, more expansive, 3, more specific, or 4, immeasurable. And I'm just remembering when I used to teach at secondary school, I would let the boys do a drum roll. And the answer is immeasurable. Oh yes, one of my colleagues did a drum roll in the background there. Thank you. I think that was Mr. Mohammed. Thank you for that. So moving along, we don't want to spend too much time on the poll because there's lots to be done still, and we want to get you working in groups. So let's look quickly at the outline of today's session's activities. It's a one-pager. Depending on how time goes, we will be flexible. All of us are engaged in teaching and learning. We are pedagogues. So we know that there's always something called contingency. So we are flexible and we will adjust to suit as the session progresses. So we've done the welcome and introductions. That TTT for writing, Elo's intro was that little scenario improvisation that Dr. Zephyr and I recorded earlier in the week. We'd like to hear your thoughts on that and your feedback at the end of today's webinar. Then we just completed the pop quiz. And then we're going to go into plenary session when a plenary session. Oh, they're not seeing it. Oh, thank you. I didn't realize you were not seeing it, folks. Just got Dr. Mr. Garcia coming in to assist.
Is everyone seeing the outline now? Confirm, just unmute. Feel free, it's just you on it.
Yes.
Yeah, we've
Yes.
seen it.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
That this is what makes teamwork so powerful, because I am just watching my share screen. So when I switch between documents, sometimes it takes a while to load. So I didn't realize that it had loaded. So you may interrupt me at any point during the webinar. We are colleagues, we're having a conversation, we're in this thing together. So I will not feel stumped if you unmute your mic or put your hand up. And Mr. Mohammed, who is functioning as our chat manager today, will alert us that there's a hand raised and you can jump in and alert us to something or make a brief comment. All right, so everyone's seeing now we are at the point of just having completed the pop quiz or the poll. We just completed the poll. So now we're going to move on to looking briefly at the origin and value of learning outcomes. I felt that that was really important, at least for me, to know a sense of the history, how learning outcomes developed in the educational discourse, on the educational landscape, and the significance of learning outcomes and being able to express them well, to articulate them well, the importance and the relationship between that and what students leave with at the end of a course, at the end of a program of study. So it's important to know the history, to gauge the value in relation to the present and what implications there are for the future. So then throughout the workshop, I will ask you to engage in some moments of reflection. We all understand the importance of our being and becoming reflective practitioners. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the name Sean, one of the proponents of reflection on learning, reflection while learning, reflection after learning. So we'll have some reflection. There will be some more plenary sessions throughout the webinar today, and there will be some breakout room sessions interspersed when you will be grouped with some of your colleagues to work on a specific task. Now, let's remember that the focus of today's session is writing and alignment. So we're not doing too much theory, we're being very practical in our focus and emphasis today. Any questions thus far? I'll try to answer them. If I can't, there's Dr. Zephyrin, there's Dr. Hill, there's Mr. Garcia, there's Mr. Mohammed. We're all here at your service. Any questions?
None for me.
None in the
Okay,
chat.
thank you very much. So moving on. We're moving on. Yes, so to the next slide. So let's look quickly at the origin and value of learning outcomes. You are familiar, I'm sure, with these names. Ivan Pavlov. During the 18th and 19th century, we had the development of thinking in the area of behaviorism, the theoretical school of behaviorism. Psychologists such as Ivan Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner were early proponents in the sense that they did foundation work that later expanded and brought us to the point now of learning outcomes being the norm in education rather than an exception. Behaviorism emphasized the clear identification and measurement of learning. Remember this word measure, immeasurable in the poll, in that pop quiz? Very important word, and we will come to discuss why later on. And the need to produce observable and measurable outcomes. Keywords: clear identification and measurement of learning. How do we know that someone has learned? And the behavioral school of thought emphasized that behavioral changes demonstrate or make visible, or behavioral evidence demonstrate or make visible in a very observable manner that learning has taken place. And we all know this as educators. What's the value of learning outcomes? A learning outcomes-based approach to student learning is now the norm, as I mentioned a little while ago, in determining whether students know and can do what educators intend. Research shows that student learning is most effective when learning outcomes are clearly understood before a learning experience. Let's look now at some of the benefits of learning outcomes. There are benefits to a course or module designer, such as ourselves, persons involved in quality assurance and standards are also beneficiaries of the value that learning outcomes bring to the table, to our work. The learners above all, because when we write student learning outcomes, the emphasis is on the learner as opposed to the teacher. And even national and international stakeholders benefit from learning outcomes. There's a document that I'd like to share with you now. Are you seeing it? I need to check to ensure that you are seeing the hyperlinks. Is anyone okay? Thank you, Mr. Garcia. My hyperlinks don't seem to be working as they ought to this morning. So is everyone seeing this value of learning outcomes document on the screen now? Please indicate. You may unmute your mic to let me know.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So some of the advantages of learning outcomes, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to read the first section, please. I think it's really important to our general understanding and appreciation of learning outcomes and their place in what we do to just engage with this document. Is not very long. So I'm going to spend the time, we're doing well for time. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer, please, to read the first benefit. Shirma, thank you. Please go right ahead. And I hope I get to meet you in person sometime soon.
Good morning. Value of learning outcomes, the advantages of learning outcomes. The advantages of adopting learning outcomes exist at several levels in terms of benefits for the course or module designer, 2, quality assurance and standards, 3, learners, and 4, national and international educational transparency.
Thank you very much, Shiva. And I hope it's okay for us to be on a first name basis. You're free to call me Juliet as well. Shirma, do we know each other?
Yes, we do.
Oh my goodness,
I am
recognize your voice. Oh my goodness. So we have to meet up after this seminar.
Will do. Bye.
Okay, another volunteer very quickly, please. Shiva got the ball rolling. Thank you so much, Shiva. Nice to bump into you again. Another volunteer quickly, please.
Benefits for the course and module designer. In terms of course and module design, the use of explicit learning outcome statements can help ensure consistency of delivery across modules or programs. They can aid curriculum design by clarifying areas of overlap between existing modules, program, and qualifications. Learning outcomes help course designers to determine precisely the key purpose of a course, how components of the syllabus fit, and how learning progression is incorporated, highlighting the crucial relationship between teaching, learning, and assessment. This means including assessment criteria and grading. Improves course design and the student experience. Learning outcomes promote in-depth reflection on assessment and the introduction of more effective and varied assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Two more volunteers, please, to bring down the curtain on this.
Benefits of quality assurance and standards. Quality assurance benefits from the adoption of learning outcomes via the resulting increase in transparency and better comparability of standards between and within qualifications. Outcome-based qualifications possess greater credibility and utility than traditional qualifications. They play a key role nationally and potentially internationally by action as points of reference for establishing and assessing standards.
Thank you very, very much. And may I have your name, please?
My name is Pradeep Sahu. As I have written, I'm lecturer in curriculum development in Faculty of Medical Science.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes.
And one more person to read the final section. Benefits for learners and employers.
Sure, this is Stephen Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Stephen.
So you're welcome. Learners benefit from a comprehensive set of standards of exactly what they will be able to achieve after successful study. Learning outcomes provide learners with clear information that can help them with their choice of module, unit, program, qualification to study, and can lead to more effective learning. They also benefit employers, higher education institutions, and civil society in general by clearly articulating the achievement and attributes associated with particular qualifications. Employers are often familiar with learning outcomes and value the spotlight they bring to skills and competences that are important in the workplace.
Thank you very, very much for reading. Stephen, that is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So let's continue with the presentation. Yes, so we just completed advantages of, yes, Mr. Garcia came to help me. Click the right place this time. So what we want to do now, yes, thank you. Are you seeing an image on your screen?
Yes.
What image is that? The person who just answered. Thank you, Pradeep. I see your hand.
It's a 2020 break.
Who is familiar with this concept or this advice?
I am.
Oh, well, please go ahead and explain it to us.
Well, I'm a psychologist, so this resonates well, especially with the online and we're staring at a screen. We need to take a break. It's good for our eye health and also, well, especially for our eye health. So it's been recommended by specialists that you look away and focus, take a 20-minute break every 20 minutes and look away at something else so you change your point of gaze.
Okay, and your name is Khatija was speaking.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Khatija. So could we all now take a 20-20-20? So we're taking a 20-second break and we're all looking away from our screens. And this is something I encourage us to do for ourselves. If you're anything like I am, you sit for hours on end in front of a computer screen. There's some people refer to it as flow, and your thoughts are deeply what? I can't think of the word, but you're deep in thought, and time goes, and then when you start to feel really tired, you realize, wait a minute, 2 hours have gone and I've not moved from in front of this computer screen. So let's
So we
take.
have Ravindra Ramnarayan. My office is 10 by 10. Can that work? Yes, man. Just take your eyes off the screen.
Well, Khadija can respond, I think.
Yeah. Let the
I am
professional
not a
answer.
psychologist, so thank
Yes.
you very much, Ravindra.
Very much so. And I also wanted to add, if you're on the other side of 40, because by 40, your lens starts to get a little more rigid, so it takes longer to focus. You might get a little blurry, and so you definitely need to take care of your eyes. So
Yes.
these breaks are important.
Yes. So
Yes.
look away,
Yes.
look away, look away, look away,
I love that.
away, look away, look away.
Who's singing?
I don't know. Some
Can
weirdo.
No, I enjoyed that song.
But I'm sure some of you know where that song is from.
But very seriously though, now since we are in post-pandemic reality globally, and online learning, distance learning is the order of the day. It has become a very strategic thing for universities, institutions of learning to adopt as a major means of program delivery. Countries all over the world, some of us may have gotten degrees in online distance learning programs. So we understand just how important something like this would be for us. And I remember during the pandemic, when in Trinidad and Tobago, we were under lockdown and teachers had to scramble and switch to remote teaching and so on. I remember visiting, I had broken my wrist. And this is a very brief anecdote. And I remember visiting the physiotherapist who said to me that the younger generation coming up in years to come will begin presenting with repetitive strain injury issues, vision issues, and so on. And I think it is very, very important for us as educators to be mindful that in all that we do, we have to encourage each other and our students and ourselves to strike a balance and never lose sight of the health factor. Very, very important. So I feel strongly about that now, having strained my eyes and so on. So I want to encourage us all to be mindful of these healthy practices. So thank you, everyone. I invite you now to pause and reflect. So you're writing in the chat now, and my colleague, Mr. Mohammed, who is managing the chat, will share with us some of the responses. I'd like you to pause for a moment and reflect. What did you know prior to entering today's webinar? What did you want to know if you had paused to begin to think about what were some of your expectations? You shared that earlier on. And as we are at this point now, is there anything new that you have learned? Or did you gain any new insight? Or was anything reinforced for you? So that in the chat, very quickly, I'll ask you to take a minute or two to write in the chat very brief statements. They don't have to be complete sentences. They can be phrases so that we don't lose too much time.
Okay, so we have one contribution in the chat so far. Rona, as part of my responsibility, I have to write learning outcomes for my courses and to revise learning outcomes. So I am very interested in improving.
Thank you for that. Do we have one?
Another contribution. I knew about the meaning and characteristics of learning outcomes. So that's a statement. And then another one here. Learned that learning outcomes place a spotlight on skills and competencies in the workplace also.
Thank you for that. Perhaps we can take one more.
Mm-hmm.
We won't have time for all, but the chat is there for everyone
Right.
to
So
see.
I knew that you should use one verb per learning outcome. I want to know overall how many learning outcomes are ideal. I think that's a really good question. Alana is saying here, learning objectives are an important part of a course and should be measurable. And I'll just read the last one here. To learn the correct information in terms of learning outcomes and the impact they have on both the students and teachers.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, colleagues, for sharing those reflections. So let's move on. That question about how many outcomes, I'm thinking that, is it Alana? It's probably thinking also about learning objectives so that clarity will come as we move along. So thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on. So we've said all of that to determine how we might want to define learning outcomes. When we peruse the literature, there are varied concepts, uses of the term learning outcomes. So let's operationalize it for ourselves. I am suggesting. How do we define learning outcomes? So I'm asking you, based on all that we have discussed thus far, and you see here on this slide, the statement that educational research uses a number of terms for this concept, including learning goals, student learning objectives, session outcomes, and more. But how do we define it? I don't know if Dr. Zephyrin is still on or if Dr. Hill is on, but feel free to jump in at any time should something come to mind concerning this. Can we accept this working definition, at least for the purpose of today's seminar? Learning outcomes are explicit and concise statements of what students will know, of what students will be able to do, and value at the end of an educational experience. So I'm going back to the previous slide. The term tends to be used rather interchangeably with other things, rather loosely. But we are giving ourselves a working definition for the purpose of today's session. And I hope you agree with me. If you don't agree, that's fine. We can have a nice conversation about it. So it's okay to disagree as well.
And if I may, Dr. Jones.
Yes.
And I think Ravindra asked a question which is quite, because we use it interchangeably. Within our context, though, we lean more to the idea of learning outcomes. The idea of objectives, as you focused on early on, the historical aspect, was very much a focus on the behaviorist paradigm. So sometimes they would even be called behaviorist objective or behavioral objectives. And there's the whole idea of procedure and being explicit in there. But as the slide that you have now focuses on not just doing, but it's all those different things that emanate from it. So it's used interchangeably, but certainly within our context, within the higher education context, and oftentimes, sometimes we see them being used, a goal, which is a wider goal or aim, being used as a learning outcome. I think that when it becomes a little challenging and difficult. But yes, learning outcomes are more used in the language or vernacular for us here within the higher education and the UE context in particular.
Thank you for that, Dr. Hill. Any other comments, colleagues? And participants, we are all colleagues, so you may jump in. Some of you are very familiar with the term and its usage here on campus. So are there any other comments, contributions? Again, thank you, Dr. Hill.
Sure, Dr. Hill, Dr. Jones.
Yes, Dr. Zephyrin, thank you.
The very often in our context, in the university context, one is used as a broader, as one seems more expansive than the other. Yeah. Sometimes, as Dr. Hill alluded to, when learning objectives are sometimes used synonymously or in the context of learning goals, sometimes. And as you rightfully said, that's when it gets a little muddy. But sometimes in some perspectives or some paradigms, they see learning outcomes as more specific, as you provided this definition here as well, and learning objectives as a broader scope. Sometimes it's used in that context. Yeah. So I think this definition that you've provided here is definitely a workable definition, and especially for the purposes of this particular workshop, and also within the context of the UWI. Yeah.
Thank you as well, Dr. Zephyrin. Any other comment before we move on? Okay, moving along.
I saw, sorry, Sao here.
Yes, please.
I saw Dr. Ravindra is using learning outcomes and learning objectives. So I think it should be like, okay, for course, it should be like course learning outcomes, and for units or modules, you can write specific learning objectives.
Yes.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. Because long ago, before 2014, I think, same if Dr. Jeffrey remembers that, we were using learning objective, course objectives. Now it is course learning outcomes. So basically these are using interchangeably. So anybody writing for the course, write as a course learning outcomes, and for units or module, specific learning objectives.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
So moving on. We want to have a little group activity. I'm going to ask Mr. Javed to put you into breakout rooms in a little while. But first, I'm going to tell you what you're going to be doing in the breakout rooms. Now, we prepared a little gift for you, our beautiful participants. There's a participant resource folder that has been made available to you. Mr. Mohammed, is the link to that folder in the chat?
I've just placed it in the chat.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So there's a link to a participant resource folder in the chat. Remember, we promised at the beginning, we're not going to put anyone in an uncomfortable position. We're not going to pick on you or pounce on you. We are all cooperatively engaging and sharing knowledge and interacting and increasing our knowledge. Even as I interact with you, what you are sharing is also helping me to construct knowledge concerning the topic of focus today. So I would want to ask you to save the link, copy and paste the link into a place where you will be able to easily access it from your device. Otherwise, we will have to keep reposting the link in the various breakout rooms. So it'll be much easier if you save the link, copy and paste the link into a document and or access the folder and keep it open. Whatever works for you. So that we want to spend some time interacting with the document in the participant resource folder that is titled Evaluating Essential Features of Learning Outcomes. But before you go into your breakout rooms, just want to tease your minds a bit. Look at some words and some images before you go into the text, printed documents, No, it's not print, but before you engage with extended text and prose. So taxonomy is an essential feature that you will be discussing in your breakout rooms. SMART, that acronym SMART that has been around for a long time, is still useful in the development of effective learning outcomes. Another essential feature that we would want to consider when developing our learning outcomes. All of this is in your folder. We also need to consider A, B, C, D, as some suggest, as a guide to developing effective learning outcomes. So another essential feature we might want to add is A, B, C, D. So we have taxonomy. Everyone knows what we're talking about when we use that word in education. So we don't have to spend the time discussing that. Everyone, I think, is familiar with that SMART acronym. And the ABCD is one with which I had not been familiar until recently. And I think it's very useful as well. So audience, participants, behavior, right. Clear is the degree, and condition is using the ABC method. So this is another essential feature. A, B, C, D, guiding our development of our creation of effective learning outcomes. Alignment. This is very, very, very important. Often I have found in my practice that teachers, I'm not talking about teachers here on campus alone per se, but generally in the education system, teachers that I would have supervised in the past and teaching practicum have sometimes neglected this essential feature of effective learning outcomes, and that is alignment. A learning outcome cannot just stand alone. It has to be connected with instructional activities and assessments for it to make sense. Otherwise, it would be the learning, the teaching and learning event would contain, what shall I say, some inconsistencies, and that might lead to confusion. It could lead to assessments not being valid, assessments not being clear or fair to the students, students not understanding precisely the purpose for which they are learning some content or engaging in specific activities. And all of us are aware of the importance of instructional activities being aligned to learning outcome, learning objectives, outcomes, and assessment. It's interconnected, cannot be separated if we want to maximize learning. And this was some,
Dr.
yes.
Jones, if I may, I
Yes,
think
Dr. Hill, please.
this is one of the main areas we would really want to reinforce, that you may be required, well, we all required to have the learning outcomes, but the sort of iteration process in the course curriculum at Settle, one of the things that we observe is that many times the assessments and the activities do not align very well with some of the outcomes. So I think this is where the whole idea of constructive alignment comes in. And we can't overstate this. This is extremely important. I mean, a basic thing, for example, you would see some persons listing 7 learning outcomes. And when you look at the topics and the themes, you want, okay, how does this align with, how is it we're making sense? Because your course outline should be a very, if you can think of your course outline as an advanced organizer in terms of helping the learning process, then that sort of alignment is an important part in helping the student metacognition and helping them really evaluate and really question whether or not they're making sense of the material. In fact, they can readily use the course outline and go ahead and begin to do that kind of self-assessment, and also going through that teaching themselves, going through some of the resources and so forth. But if it's not aligned, it makes it very difficult. So oftentimes you would have the outcomes, and then the topics would be, some of them are different, and then all of a sudden the topics speak to the assessments speak to the topic, but since the outcomes were not aligned well with the topics, and it makes it all a mismatch. So that sort of, which is why that triangle is being explicit here. There should be that natural connection between the learning outcomes, the activities, obviously the topics, and the assessments, and we cannot stress that important. That's one of the things we see coming quite popular as a challenge, as a gap, in that persons will be rushing to do they will change the outcomes, but oftentimes they would leave the activities at the same, when you should be making that, which is why there is that matrix, there's that matrix which really actually, we've seen examples, for example, where somebody would have in a matrix will have 10 items, which really tells me that they didn't really do the matrix alignment. Because oftentimes we'll see those common mistakes happening. So it's important for that alignment between those. I mean, because Dr. Jones did rightly say it's not valid. It becomes a very difficult thing for us to aim to allow our students to be successful if we are not being fair to them in a very meaningful way.
Thank you, Dr. Hill, for that.
Can I build on that a little bit, Dr. Jones?
Yes, please, Dr.
I think what Dr. Hill is saying is right, is correct. Just to provide a tip in terms of getting that alignment, a good question to ask yourself is, okay, if you have a particular learning outcome or learning objective, then you want to ask yourself, okay, well, how will I know that this learning outcome is going to is accomplished, or how will this learning outcome be explicitly observed, or what do students need to know so that I know that they have met this learning outcome? And so it would require some sort of task or observable behavior, which I know you'll explain. But that's one of the best ways or the easiest ways in which you can get alignment. Just ask yourself when you put, let's say, about 3, 4, 5, or 8 learning outcomes, consider, okay, well, now that you have the learning outcomes, how will I know that students have accomplished this learning outcome? Or in other words, what do students need to do, which should be stated in the learning outcome. So if the learning outcome is identify a list, identify the features of an air conditioning unit, right? Then what would the activity be, whether it's a learning activity or an assessment activity? What would the activity be that students are going to do so you know that that learning outcome has been accomplished? And it's almost like a part of a puzzle. So there must always be a sort of connection between the learning outcomes, the assessments, the activities, etc. So just and we do have a workshop, 2-part workshop series, let me say this as well, on preparing your course proposals at the UWI, course or program proposals. I think that workshop is later this month, I believe, next 2 or 3 weeks. So you can look out for that as well. Yeah.
Yes, thank you as well, Dr. Zephyrin. That is definitely a cannot miss workshop to attend. So moving on, I'm looking at the time. We have about 15 minutes left. This session is being recorded, so you'll have access to the slides. So I'll move on. We have a task now for you that will last 10 minutes. You will be put into breakout rooms randomly, and this is the instruction. Please make a note of it. Select one sample learning outcome. We don't have time for more in today's session. Select one sample learning outcome from the participant resource folder. Please confirm that you were able to access the folder, someone, via the link that was shared. Let's confirm that, please. And this is a sample learning outcome that you think is exemplary. You will see a virtual handout, an e-handout, I can probably call it, with some sample learning outcomes. Then among yourselves in your breakout room, we're asking you to discuss the essential features of the sample learning outcome that the group selected. Then I'd like you, while you have your discussions, to note reasons for your selection. And even when you do so, you may choose to compare and contrast it with another sample learning outcome to include in your group's report in the plenary session that follows your group activity. In the plenary session, when we resume, each group will have one person from that group, one representative, present about their selected learning sample learning outcome. And remember that presentation should only take about 2 minutes. A lot can be said in 1 minute. If you carry your minds back to the first video you saw with that little improvisation, that video lasted 1 minute and 26 seconds. And I was really amazed at how much we were able to say in that 1 minute and 26 seconds. So I'm challenging you today. I'm going to put a 1 minute, 26 second marker on your group presentation. So we buy us a little more time at the end, because something really nice is happening at the end with all of us. So we don't want to lose out on our time to do that. So Mr. Mohammed will let me know. Javed?
Yeah, it's ready. Just let me know
Okay,
when to
thank
launch.
you. As soon as everyone taken note of the instructions, the task for your breakout room group activity.
So there's a screenshot in the chat. You can save that as you go out into your breakout rooms.
Thank you.
I'll open the rooms now,
Thank you.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, and we'll come visit you in your breakout rooms as you deliberate.
Okay, so you should be seeing that prompt on your screen.
So I'm going to join room 1. Is anyone able to join room 2? Or 3?
I could take group T. I could take group 2.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Do we have anyone for group 3, please?
Yeah, I
Room
can take group
3?
3.
Okay, thank you. Is that Mark?
Justin.
Oh, Justin, thank you. And room
All right.
4? Mark? No, Mark
Yeah.
has to leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what's happening. For group
Yes.
4 right now,
Yes.
a person dropped out, and Mary Lou.
Sorry, Javed. Javed,
Yeah.
I want to pause the recording so this doesn't come out in the recording.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So in our group, we selected the third learning outcome, that is learners will be able to interpret marketing data and use it to create graphs. This one we selected. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we're hearing you. Thank you.
Yes. And why? The reason is this is more specific and this is measurable. Most important thing is this is measurable, achievable, and this is time limited. Though I'm not the subject expert, but I'm sure that the subject expert will find out how long it will take to finish these learning outcomes. So that's why we selected this one. And in second section, there are some learning outcomes we found that are very broad and that cannot be measurable, that are not measurable, not specifics. That's why we did not select that one, right? And how this can be assessed, like through some MCQ question also possible, or some SAQ and long question it is possible to, and some like practical assessment, that also it is measurable. That's why we have selected this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group 1. That was excellent. Could we please show some appreciation? Use your emojis, round of applause, thumbs up to our colleagues in Group 1 as Group.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, Pradeep.
Now we are managing with this emoji. We are missing lunch or breakfast. Earlier, Justin know that they were providing that those lunch and breakfast we are missing.
Oh
Food.
my.
Yeah. We are missing those foods.
I think
Tasty
I will
foods.
defer to my director to respond to that.
Yeah.
I am responding LOL.
Oh my God. Good.
LOL.
Accepted.
Yes, I could only smile about it.
Okay.
Good
So
try,
we
Pradeep. Good try.
We'd say LOL.
For now, LOL.
For now, yes,
Yeah.
for now. But if you come to the faculty cafe on the 19th, you will certainly get some lunch.
Okay, great.
So make sure you're there.
Yeah,
right?
I think someone gave me pizza, virtual pizza. Good. Thank you.
I am really looking forward to meeting you at the faculty cafe. All of you on the 19th of March, is it? Yeah.
19th of April.
19th of April, sorry.
Javed will put the flyer on at the end.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comic relief. All right, group 2, breakout room 2. Who is the presenter? Now remember, 1 minute, 26-second challenge.
Group 2 presented first.
Oh, that was group 2. Well,
No,
what's
no, sorry, my
group
mistake. That was
one?
group one. That was group one, yeah, sorry.
So group two now. Anyone for group two? The clock is ticking away.
I think the issue is persons don't know which group they belong to. I'm not sure if we saw a group.
Oh, so Ravindra, what?
You won group two, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Christy has volunteered to do it. Christy?
All
Oh, we
right.
volunteered her, sorry. We volunteered her.
Exactly. You volunteered me. I'm
Thank
not
you
sure
for rising to
we-
the challenge.
I don't know if we did the task properly. So we're in the sample learning outcome sheet, right?
Mhm.
And there were some examples of well-written outcomes versus poorly written outcomes. And then
Yeah.
we scrolled down, we saw some examples and we focused on those examples for our selection. Was that right?
That's
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay. Well, we selected, okay, so here's a go. We selected a lecture on organizational strategies. Looking at that learning outcome there, we said that might be along the lines of something that could be exemplary. Why? Because it followed a lot of the SMART aspects. One of the members did talk about quantification and whether quantification was missing in the outcome. So that was part of, maybe it could be a bit more specific if we want to be at time boundedness there. So we felt that this might be able to achieve some level of, exemplariness, which is not a word, but along the lines of that. We may compare it to another one where there was a lot of actionable verbs. I'm not saying the one we saw before where it had apply, describe, and those things. So we would have eliminated. So this wasn't there. Learners are able to identify situations in which the company applies and describes. So we said that some of those others may have too many action verbs and thus lead to it being immeasurable. So that was our take on the assignment.
Beautiful, thank you. And we're hearing the jargon in use in both instances, and you're using the criteria to evaluate those learning outcomes, those samples. Excellent as well. Let's have the final group. Let's show some appreciation, emojis, applause, thumbs up. Let's encourage our peers as group three comes. I love that, Keisha. Thank you.
Hi, good day, everyone. I'm Stephen Henry from Group 3.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Yes,
Stephen.
sure. Let me just share my screen briefly.
And Stephen, what department you're from? Or are you from finance, bursary?
I'm from Campus IT Services.
Okay, I was trying to make the name for faculty.
And more importantly,
Okay.
for the purposes of competition, he's part of group 3. I'm just saying, but let's go. Just kidding.
Thanks, Dr. Zafran. All right, so we had looked at the fourth objective, all right, which spoke to learners will be able to employ company prescribed. We believe SEO meant search engine optimization practices while writing copy. All right, so we compare that to the point 4 of the area where it pointed out to poorly written outcomes. All right, so we had looked at the area where the being able to employ, well, the standards, all right. We had noted the acronyms that was mentioned before in terms of the being specific, measurable, attainable, related, time bound, while the poorly written outcome looked at the areas where there's no compared to be able to employ. So being able to employ meant that there was something being measured or actionable, right, rather than just knowing. All right, and it was important to mention the elements of learning, audience, behavior, condition, and decree. All right, so were we correct on the SEO? In terms of the acronym, the search engine optimization.
Search, and I don't know, I'm not a subject expert here.
Oh, okay.
To use Pradeep's, but we're looking at, okay, so that you use the criteria to evaluate this, And just share with us very quickly again where the alignment to the criteria was evident, please.
Well, we believe it was evident in being able to, hold on, let's bring it back up. Hey, when is she doing? I lost the document
That's
actually.
okay.
Right, but
I
being
heard you
able
mention,
to,
yes, some keywords,
right,
yeah,
to employ the knowledge,
yes.
right, while writing the copy, comparing to just knowing it. So the action of being able to do it rather than just knowing it.
Okay, whether it's doable, I think you mentioned measurable.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Stephen, thank you.
Okay,
This
you're
group did
welcome.
really well as well.
Thank you.
Oh, somebody's offering ice cream to group 3.
We will gladly
Beautiful.
welcome those
I love this
rewards.
group of participants. All right. So thank you, folks. Let's show our appreciation to group 3. Besides ice cream or cupcake. All right, some thumbs up, applause. All right, so moving on quickly. Thanks. I'm seeing. Nice. Moving on now. You all did that very well. Very, very pleased. It is evident that you are all psychologically engaged. And as you were all speaking, I remembered something that a friend said to me some time ago. Do you know how persons like cashiers and so on are trained to detect counterfeit notes? By becoming very, very intimately acquainted with the real McCoy, as we would say, with the real thing. So that when we can identify a learning outcome that is exemplary and be able to deconstruct it and identify the constituent components vis-a-vis the criteria and the checklists that were shared or are available, then when the substandard one comes before us, immediately we can say this is missing specificity, or that is missing measurability, or somebody used an itty, created an itty word. We can add that as well. I don't recall it now. But it is so important to know what constitutes an exemplary learning outcome, so that when we have to do them, it's not as demanding a task. At least that is how it works for me. And I would like to think it works for a lot of us in that manner as well. So moving on. So we had the group 3 presentations. I'm not going to ask persons to write in the chat. I'm just going to give you about a minute to engage in quiet thought and reflection concerning what just happened. And at this point, we might want to employ the 20-20-20 rule. So I shall shift my gaze away from the screen and the camera. Let's do 10-10-10, as was suggested earlier. So we shift away, count to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I forgot to angle to my better side. And let's look, what is the rest of it? You look 10 feet away. So it's 10 seconds. And then what's the other 10? Somebody unmute and remind me, please.
20-20-20.
But it's look away for 20. Then what's the next thing?
It was every 20 minutes, take a 20-second break and look 20 feet away.
And look 20 feet away. So I'm averaging 20 feet away. All right, good. So let's move on now. I'm assuming we've all done that. So some practical guidelines for writing effective learning outcomes. I'm almost afraid to click on this camera Javed? I'm trying to
Yes.
remember what happens here. Yes, we have a video for you to watch, another video. Do I need
Okay.
to enable sound?
Yes.
Is anyone hearing it?
No, we're not hearing
Not
it.
yet.
Not yet.
All right, okay, so we're working on that. You will hear it in about 3 seconds. We just had to do some going back and forth on this device.
Created using Powtoon.
Hi, folks. Thank you for your patience. We are back. We are back. I think some of us were getting so engrossed and enjoying the music in that video that, by the way, I think Dr. Zephyrin, you had created that nice video, that very informative, engaging video. Am I correct? Is Dr. Zephyrin?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
No
so
problem at all.
I was really dancing along and so on. Thank you for sharing that with us. So
Anytime.
colleagues, I am looking at the time. It is now 11:46 on my clock here. I'm just coming back to the last slide. Yes, we are at this point where we want to look a little more deeply at writing effective learning outcomes, some practical guidelines. We don't have a lot of time left, so I want to throw it out to you. Let's make a decision together. All that we have left to do, we're actually near the end of the workshop, a 10-minute breakout room session, and then a 10-minute plenary session, and that's the end of the workshop. But it is now 11:47, so that if we are to engage in this final activity, which actually serves to synthesize and brings to a fuller conclusion what we have been discussing throughout the morning session, we have to decide. I will go with what you prefer to do, because I'm very particular about encroaching on persons. I have a public service background. 12 to 1 was lunch. A lot of people have lunch 12 to 1. So that it's only by permission that I will continue with that planned activity in the breakout room. We could cut everything to 5 minutes each, and you just do a really quick thing in your breakout rooms. But for it to really bring our session to completion, and what do we call what happens at the end of a lesson? When we check for learning and conclude things nicely and tie up loose ends. So what do you say? Maybe you could type your response very quickly in the chat and we then proceed. If you want us to continue, we will do so and wrap things up by about 12:10, 12:15, but only by permission from you. So, Mr. Mohammed, what are the responses of our colleagues?
So I guess they still deliberating.
It's fine with me, Doc. 12:10, 12:15, okay with me.
All right, thank you so much for that. Do we have consensus? Adhere.
Yes, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah,
Jones, go ahead.
continue.
Yes,
thank you very much. So let's go along very quickly now. This is the task. We're getting straight to the jugular. No set of theory or anything here. You're going into your breakout rooms again and it's a preparation for a panel discussion. Now, let me explain more by going to the next slide. The task. And yes, the task. So, Mr. Mohammed, there's something that goes along with this task, an audio. You are a group of educational consultants, esteemed educational consultants. An international organization has engaged you to support a Prodi project in Elloville, Smart State, on the east coast of Eduland. This project focuses exclusively on helping in-service teachers to acquire and apply knowledge about writing effective learning outcomes. So this is your mission. Mr. Mohammed, this is their mission. So that we can have the audio under this as they listen to their mission, their task as educational consultants. I'm looking to play the audio on my phone, but I'm not putting it up right away. So I'm hoping that one of my colleagues can play the audio there in the meantime. Oh, I think I found it. So that the request for your consultancy services further includes a requirement for your participation in a panel discussion about writing effective learning outcomes. So I'll read that again.
We're not
The
hearing.
request for your consultancy services further includes a requirement for your participation in a panel discussion about writing effective learning outcomes on the weekly Enhancing Pedagogy show broadcast on the Teaching Tips local TV channel, TTT, Trinidad and Tobago Television. Use the Writing Effective Learning Outcomes document in your participant resource folder, well, you already have that, to assist your group's preparation and participation in the panel discussion. So that we are going to put you now, I think Mr. Mohammed might be copying and posting the task details in the chat, and we are assigning you randomly into breakout rooms again. You may find that you do not end up in the same breakout room as prior, but that's quite okay. It's an opportunity for persons to interact with a different group of persons. That was deliberate on our part when we planned this session, because we really want to promote, to encourage networking among faculty across disciplines as we work together to develop our competencies, our skills as pedagogues with enhanced ability, augmented ability to write exemplary learning outcomes. So you're going into your rooms now, and the same persons who joined groups 1, 2, and 3 as co-facilitators will join the same rooms again. So I will go to room 1. Everyone hasn't joined yet. So the rooms are filling up. I'll join room 1. I don't know if we have anyone to join group 2, room 2 to support, and someone to join room 3 to support. Pradeep is there, and we might have to add Karima to group 3 to work along with Pradeep.
Please put me in a group. I made a mess. My closed door by mistake. My what? Yeah.
Who is this?
Java, why don't we
Yeah,
just use
sorry
2
about that.
groups?
Okay.
Can we just use 2 groups instead?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
fine.
because I think some people left.
Yeah,
So
because
probably
people are
2
leaving.
groups
Yeah,
might be
people are
best.
leaving.
Yes, they have to move on.
Oh, one. Okay, thanks. I got it now.
Okay, great. So let's just spend about 5 to 7 minutes in the groups, and then we close with the panel discussion.
Just have to pause the recording, right?
Intimate knowledge, and we need to have an intimate knowledge and acquaintance with the curriculum. So that will be our starting point. We need to follow the SMART principle. We also need to be acutely aware of Bloom's taxonomy, because in that way we'll be catering to the different levels of our students. And whatever we do, there must be relevance and meaning for the student, because we believe that when you have relevance and meaning, there is an easier way in which the child can learn and retain whatever is shared. We need to align whatever we do with appropriate, relevant assessment using the modality in which the teaching will have taken place. And we need to ascertain the level of success at which the students are operating, because nothing succeeds as success. So we'll take it from that. Thank you on behalf of our team.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. And do we have any other contributions from members of the panel?
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones, and hello to the listening public of Trinidad and Tobago.
Good afternoon.
I also think it's important for new teachers to have the big picture concept. So to start off by thinking, years from now, what do you want your students to have retained from your course? What knowledge, what concepts, what skills do you want them to apply? And how would they be able to use that to pursue their careers or to contribute to their societies and communities that they live in? So I think if we start with the big picture and then funnel down to the specifics that my colleague, Mr. Oliver, so articulately presented, they'd be starting on the right track.
Thank you so very much. And we invite one more comment before we wrap up this segment. We're almost out of time. You know how it is. In the media, time is money. So we invite one final comment from our illustrious panel of education consultants to respond to this question from an in-service teacher who would like advice on how she can develop exemplary learning outcomes. Who will be next? I see the producer is giving us the wind down signal. Any other? We thank the two panelists.
So one more thing I want to add in my group, that we have to see that how the course learning outcomes are aligned with the program learning outcomes. That is also important, right? Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And viewers, we thank you for viewing this panel discussion, yet another segment of our Enhancing Pedagogy show. We invite you to look out for Tuesday Teaching Tips. Next Tuesday, don't miss it. You can access those tips via email that was shared with you a while ago. Perhaps other platforms will be made available via other media platforms, and that may be coming soon. We will let you know, look out for the announcements. So I'm Juliet Jones, thanking you for viewing and wishing you a pleasant evening.
Okay, so we have a raised hand. Christy, go ahead.
Yes, Christy.
Yes, thank you. This is concerning the Tuesday tips. Sometimes when I click on the link, I actually don't get to view the videos. I don't know if anybody has the same issue. So I would access the link, but I don't see the video at all. Only the transcript comes up. So I'm not sure if I'm doing something incorrectly, but if anybody else is having that issue, please let me know.
Christy, are you referring to the Monday morning mentors?
Yes, the Monday morning mentors, mentorship,
Right.
sorry.
So this is after you enter the code, right?
Yes, yes.
So try using Google Chrome. Are you using Google Chrome?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
try
not.
using Google Chrome. Perhaps
Okay.
it's a browser issue. Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay,
We could test this week's post.
Thank you very much, Christy, for that question, and Mr. Mohammed for that response. Thank you in a very special way coming from me to all of you for participating in today's session. We don't have time for my final pause and reflect activity, except to implore you to access the link in the chat to the evaluation form for this webinar, today's webinar. Usually, sometimes it takes a while for us to get the feedback. We really need to get that feedback. So I'm asking you, before you go, please, if at all possible, if you could spend some quiet pause and reflect time once more, completing that evaluation form. I want to say a special thank you as well to my colleagues who supported me. I experienced some technical challenges with the device I'm using. I want to say thank you for your support. Back to our participants, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your engagement, your interaction. I felt very encouraged and engaged with you all. And I hope that your expectations were met and that you are eager to access additional courses that will be offered from time to time by SATL. And indeed, it was a tremendous pleasure interacting with all of you. So as you quietly pause once again, as we bring this webinar to a conclusion, we ask you to spend some time with our evaluation form to give us that crucial feedback that is so vital to the work we do as educators. Thank you.